Hello, welcome to the Trade School, where we are putting out free videos for basic trading education, from options and futures to basic stock. Our videos will be short and easy to understand. This is Chapter 1 of a 6-part series on basic option mechanics. Before trading options, let's talk about the basics. Let's get started. What is an option? An option is a tradable asset. More specifically, it is a derivative contract that you can purchase that gives the buyer the right to buy or sell an underlying asset, such as a stock, index, or commodity, at an agreed-upon price on or before a specific date. However, the buyer has a right but not an obligation to execute the contract. You can also sell an option contract, where you are selling this right to someone else and receive a premium for the contract. If you're new to options and this sounds confusing, don't worry. Hang in there. We'll go over a few definitions and examples, and it will all come together and start making sense. Take notes and write down these definitions so you can refer back to them during this short course. There are two types of options, and each option contract represents 100 shares of the underlying asset, whether it be a stock, index, or commodity. For this course, we will use traditional stocks as our underlying asset. Call options. Calls give the option holder the right, but not the obligation, to buy shares of stock at an agreed-upon price on or before a specific date. Put options. Puts give the option holder the right, but not the obligation, to sell shares of stock at an agreed-upon price on or before a specific date. This agreed price is called the strike price. The strike price is the price at which the stock can be bought or sold. The specific date is called the expiration date. The expiration date is the date when the option contract expires. Now that we have gone over the definitions, we can move on to some examples. Let's say you bought a call option at the 125 strike price with an expiration date of 45 days from now, giving you a long call position with defined risk of the premium you paid for the contract. Owning this call option will allow you to purchase stock at $120 per share, the strike price, anytime within the next 45 days, the expiration date, no matter where the stock price is trading. If the stock goes up to $140 over the next 45 days, fortunately for you, you own a call option that gives you the right to buy the stock at $125, even though the stock is currently trading at $140. Now, instead of buying a call, let's say you bought a put option with a strike price of $125 and an expiration date of 45 days. This will allow you to sell the stock at $125 over the next 45 days, regardless of where the stock price goes. This is valuable because what if the stock moves down to $100 per share? You own a put option that gives you the right to sell shares at $125, even though the current market price is $100. This is a much better price than if you were to simply sell the stock outright at the current market price. Sounds pretty easy, right? But why? Why would someone want to purchase an option contract? First, we'll go over why someone would want to buy a put option. Recall that a put option gives the buyer the right, but not the obligation, to sell shares of a stock at an agreed-upon price on or before a specific date. Let's put this into terms that make it easier to understand. Let's say you just bought your dream car, a new Bugatti perhaps. To protect this new dream car, you're going to need car insurance. So you go to Jay from State Farm and purchase insurance from him. This financially protects your new Bugatti in case you get into an accident. This car insurance purchase is based on the same concept as options. For further explanation, instead of the car insurance example, let's say you are an investor who buys 100 shares of ABC stock at $100 per share. The total cost of this investment is $10,000. Most traders know that share prices ebb and flow in the market. A stock could theoretically go to zero if something drastic happened. So in this example, our investor's total risk is $10,000. Just like our first example of buying car insurance to protect a new vehicle, we can also buy insurance to protect our investment. We do this by purchasing an option contract. In this example, we would buy a put option. Remember, buying a put option gives us the right, but not the obligation, to sell stock at an agreed-upon price on or before a specific date. To recap, you as an investor own stock in ABC Company and want to ensure that stock investment, so you buy a put option. If you bought an option, someone had to sell it to you. But who? The answer is simple. Any other trader who is willing to take on the risk at the price of the option contract. Just like the car insurance provider, the option seller takes on the risk in exchange for the premium paid. This is the very basic idea behind stock options. A stock investor has risk and wants to pay someone to take on some of that risk from their investment. The person who gets paid from selling the options contract now assumes that risk. Let's look at another example. You just bought $15,000 worth of ABC stock. You also bought a put option as insurance for the investment. The factors that determine the price of an options contract will be covered in the next few chapters. For now, let's assume $500 was paid for the contract. This put option gives you full coverage for your shares for the next 45 days. Let's look over a couple of scenarios for this example. Scenario number 1. The stock and put option were purchased, and the stock price moves from 150 to 160. You made $10 per share on 100 shares, resulting in a total profit of $1,000. However, you paid $500 for an options contract that now has no value. Subtracting the $500 paid for the options contract leaves you with a net profit of $500. This might sound disappointing to you as the buyer of the contract. Meanwhile, the seller of the put option is happy because they keep the $500 premium you paid for the contract. Let's look at another scenario. Scenario number 2. Instead of the stock price going up, it goes down. The stock price moves from $100 to $90. The stock is now $10 cheaper than what you originally paid. Multiply the $10 per share loss by 100 shares, and that brings your total loss to -$1,000. Thankfully, you bought a put option as insurance for your investment. You can now go to the put option seller and exercise your right to sell your stock at the $100 strike price, meaning you did not lose money on the stock trade itself. Your only loss was the money spent on the put contract. This is much better than losing the full $1,000 if you had not purchased the contract. Remember, the trader who sold you the contract had a contractual agreement with you and an obligation to purchase your shares at the agreed-upon strike price of $100. The put seller gets to keep the $500 you paid for the contract, but they are now sitting on a $1,000 loss because they had to purchase the stock. At this point, they could immediately sell the stock and accept a net loss of $500, or they could hold the stock and hope it moves higher. This is the basic idea behind options. They are insurance for investments. This is the main reasons options exist. You may have a couple of thoughts and say to yourself, I don't want to buy the stock or insure my current investments. I just want to trade options by themselves and learn strategies to do that. You can and will. That's the great thing about options. You have options. However, it's important to understand the basic mechanics of options so you can understand how they are priced. This will be covered in later chapters. At this point, you should have a basic understanding of how options work. Buying a put option is like buying insurance for an investment. Selling a put option is like selling insurance on an investment. Now let's look at another reason why a trader might want to buy an option. Let's look at someone who wants to buy a call option. In this example, let's say you do not currently own any shares, but you have found a stock that you are really interested in. There is just one problem. The stock is expensive and requires a large amount of capital. One alternative to buying the stock outright is purchasing a call option. Buying the call option would give you the right to buy the stock at a future date for a small premium up front if your assumption was correct and the stock moved higher. Let's go over an example. Stock ABC is currently trading at $100 per share. To buy 100 shares would require $10,000 in capital. Instead of using all of your capital to purchase the stock, we could buy the $100 strike call option with 45 days until expiration. This gives us the right to buy 100 shares at $100 per share anytime before expiration. Again, the price we pay for the option is determined by other factors, which will be covered in later chapters. For this example, let's assume we paid $500. Let's look at two scenarios. Scenario number 1. You buy the call option and the stock price moves from $100 to $110. You own the $100 strike call option. What you could do now is exercise your call. Exercising your option simply means you decide to take advantage of the rights the option contract gives you to buy the stock at a lower price. Currently, you are up $10 per share on this stock. Since there are 100 shares per contract, you are up $1,000. However, don't forget that you paid $500 for the call option. This brings your total profit to $500. You might be thinking, if I had bought the stock instead of the option, I would have made more money. This is true. But let's look at another example. Scenario number 2. In this example, the stock price moves down from $100 to $90 per share. Just as in the previous example, you purchased the $100 strike call option. This gives you the right to buy the stock at $100 per share. But why would anyone want to buy a stock at $100 when the current market price is only $90? No one would. Remember, buying options gives us a right, but it does not obligate us to use that right. Of course, you are not going to exercise this call option when the current market price is cheaper than your strike price. Instead, the option will expire worthless, and you lose the money spent on the premium for the contract. In contrast, if we had purchased the stock at $100 per share instead of buying the call option, our total loss would have been $1,000. That is the benefit of buying a call option instead of purchasing the stock outright. You have less upfront capital and less risk, but you must pay a premium for that advantage. Lastly, you can also trade put options the same way. Without owning the stock, you can buy a put option if you believe the stock price may go down. However, exercising a put option and using the right to sell stock without actually owning shares will result in a short stock position. To recap, when you buy a call option, you are making a prediction that the stock will go up. When you buy a put option, you are making a prediction that the stock will go down. Understand that you do not have to exercise options when you trade them, like in the example scenarios. You can simply buy and sell the options contracts themselves for a profit. Please watch the next chapters because there are significant risks involved with buying options in this way. You will learn about other and often better ways to trade options in the upcoming videos. Plus, we will go over the factors involved in option pricing. Okay, that is it for Chapter 1 and basic option mechanics. Before you move on to trading options, please watch the next 3 chapters and the additional videos to gain more knowledge and become more proficient in your trading. Thanks for watching, and if you found value in this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks again.